on to major developments in the John Wiley Price corruption case.
36 hours of deliberation, and the jury appears to be deadlocked on some of the counts. The judge, in fact, sent them home today. Fox 4's Sean Rabb is outside the federal courthouse with what could be, I guess, Sean, seen as a positive sign for Price's team, right?
So, yeah, it's a positive sign for the defense, Heather, because it certainly indicates that this was not a case that the government convinced the jurors on all the counts, at least not initially. They've been deliberating now 36 hours over 5 days, and they have agreed on some counts, but not agreed on other counts. That's what's clear right now. We don't know to which defendant they are disagreeing on those counts as well. But the Price team and the Fain team, they left the courthouse today. They were all smiles as they left. They weren't talking, but they were smiling. Jurors are talking with their votes, not able to agree on unanimous verdicts on all counts. So Judge Barbara Lynn giving them what's known as the Allen charge, designed to help put jurors at ease and move them from their entrenched positions. In the charge, the judge telling them they'll continue deliberating to hopefully reach agreement on the counts they disagree on. The counts they don't agree on are subject to retrial. The judge told them there's no reason to believe 12 other people could do a better job, and she reminded them no juror is expected to give up on an honest belief as to the weight or effect of evidence. Let's listen to trial attorney Chrysta Castañeda talks about one scenario the jurors could be dealing with.
It may be that the jury has skipped ahead and already voted on whether Ms. Fain is liable on that count or not, and is perhaps going back to some of the harder issues.
And that's not uncommon.
That is not uncommon, and I think it's probably a fair assumption at this point, when we're 5 days in, that they are having a hard time reaching a unanimous verdict on one or more of the counts.
So she nailed it, that interview earlier today, before we actually knew that, in fact, the jury expressed this problem to the judge. Attorney Castañeda nailing it on more than one count. The jury did tell us today they are having difficulty coming to a unanimous verdict. So the judge said, go home, have a good meal, relax this evening, watch mindless television, Judge Barbara Lynn told them. She said, take deep breaths, and then come back tomorrow ready to get down to brass tacks and do the hard work of continuing deliberations. But, you know, the defense has to be happy at this point, just because, again, they've taken the government to task, and the government was not able to convince 12 people, at least in 36 hours of deliberation, to come back with unanimous guilty verdicts on all of these. Heather?
The jurors in the John Wiley Price corruption trial told the judge they are deadlocked. They cannot agree on a unanimous verdict on all counts. Federal Judge Barbara Lynn sent them home early with instructions to come back to work tomorrow morning. Fox 4's Sean Rabb reports.
While we don't know which defendant and which counts the jury can't agree on, we do know Price is facing 11 counts, from conspiracy to commit bribery to a handful of mail fraud counts and tax conspiracy and fraud. Daphne Fain is joined with Price on the tax fraud conspiracy count, and she has one lone count of lying to the government.
It may be that the jury has skipped ahead and already voted on whether Ms. Fain is liable on that count or not, and is perhaps going back to some of the harder issues.
U.S. District Judge Barbara Lynn giving the jurors what's known as the Allen charge, telling them, continue deliberating. The counts they can't agree on are subject to retrial. There's no reason to believe 12 other people could do a better job, and no juror is expected to give up an honest belief as to the weight or effect of evidence. The defendants were smiling as they left federal court. Jurors seemed stressed.
Any time that they cannot reach a unanimous verdict means that somebody has to try again to convince people that they haven't yet convinced. That's a stressful social dynamic. We've experienced it, every one of us, in other contexts. It's doubly stressful when you're in this circumstance.
Of finding the man downtown and his assistant guilty on corruption, tax charges, and lying to the government. Sean Rabb, Fox 4 News.
The federal judge in the corruption trial of Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price sent jurors home early and ordered them to take their minds off the case. Jurors apparently seemed really stressed as they left court, saying that they were deadlocked after 5 days of deliberations. The judge told jurors that if they cannot decide on the case, another jury will have to hear the case all over again. She said no juror is expected to give up an honest belief based on the evidence, and asked them to continue deliberating this morning after getting some much-needed rest.
Anytime that they cannot reach a unanimous verdict means that somebody has to try again to convince people that they haven't yet convinced. That's a stressful social dynamic. We've experienced it, every one of us, in other contexts. It's doubly stressful when you're in this circumstance.
So it's not clear which defendant and which charges the jury disagrees on. John Wiley Price faces 11 counts, from conspiracy to commit bribery to mail fraud to tax conspiracy and fraud. His assistant Daphne Fain also faces a tax fraud conspiracy count and 1 count of lying to the government.